Right, so let me introduce you. So, Sue is the founder of Sue Keogh, a Cambridge-based digital marketing company specialising in content creation, strategy and training. So we're in great hands today. She regularly shares her knowledge in workshops with folks like University of Cambridge, government digital services and a huge range of small businesses. She also hosts Sue Keogh School and a series of online courses in digital marketing. Again, I'll pull all of these notes together and links together for later on. In terms of questions, Sue will kick off in a moment, but if you've got any questions at any point in time, just drop them into Facebook and they should flash up onto the screen. Now, if I manage to miss a question you ask, don't worry about it. I will try and go back over the group later on and pull them out of the comments, and maybe Sue will be kind enough to answer it, and then I will put it into the replay later on. Talking of the replay, don't worry again if you need to vanish early. I know we're all busy today, or maybe with the beautiful weather outside, you're going to head somewhere, socially distance allowed. So if you do need to vanish early, I will be packaging this up as usual into a replay with all the show notes onto the blog sometime next week, and you can catch up with it then. So yeah, if you ask a question and you've got to vanish, you can have a look there. Right, there's me with all my blurb. I think, Sue, is there anything else you want to do to introduce yourself before you kick off, or?
No, just to say hello everybody. And I've got a ton of tips to share, and it's in kind of 4 parts, so that's also a good point if anyone has got any questions to, we can pick them up there and as we go. So yeah, lots to pass on this afternoon.
Super, and I'm looking forward to it. Okay, so shall we look at your slides? Shall I go over to that, Sue?
Yeah, let me see if that will work. Yay, There we go. Yeah, so shall I kick off?
Go for it.
Great. Okay, thank you. So what I thought we'd look at is how people read online. So it's very different to how we read in print. So I just wanted to kind of clarify a few areas there. Thinking about what people actually want as well. And while we go through this bit, I want you to think about how you act on the web as well when you're not in your day job thinking about the website that you manage. Yeah. How you behave on the web as a normal consumer, user, whatever you want to call it. Some tips on good layout. And so us as a business, we're based in Cambridge, which means we do a lot of work in education, but also tech and science and a few sort of legal clients as well. And people are always thinking, well, I don't really want to kind of change the text itself. So often layout is a really good way of making it more readable if you don't want to change some of the more kind of, legalese or academic kind of jargon, which can be quite handy. So I've got some tips there. And then that flows quite nicely into the importance of plain English as well. So yeah, lots of tips to share.
Great.
So something for you to think about first of all, and I'll come to this shortly. But when you look at a page of web content, what percentage of words do you think we actually read? So is that over 90%, about 30 to 40 or 10%? What do you think, Joel?
Based on me, if I'm generous, it's going to say 2. I'm guessing for me, it's probably 3. As that initial, I don't know. Am I lazy? I don't know. I'm not sure. If anybody else that wants to give a guess, feel free to drop it in the comments. It does take a while to come through sometimes, but I'll drop it on. No, please let me know your wisdom there, Sue.
Yeah, okay, right. So just keep that at the back of your mind for a moment.
Cool.
And then we're going to think about how people read on the web. So an important thing to note, and particularly if there's any developers, WordPress designers, is that people read in this kind of F pattern. So they start top left, and then we go across like that, and then we go down a bit, and then we go across. So in the same way that we might, because we learn to read over in this part of the world anyway, we learn to read from left to right.
Yeah.
And it's the same when we're scanning a bit of content. So that area sort of top left on the screen is really important. And if you put some interesting facts, some important information there, that's a really good place to put it, because we are very much reading in this kind of left to right kind of way. So what we're looking at here is a heat map. So it's done using eye tracking software. So where it's red, that's where people's eyes have been dwelling longer. And then blue and, the areas that haven't got any colour at all, people are just not looking there so much. Yeah. So it's really worth bearing in mind when you're actually designing the site and thinking about the layout as well. So this is just a typical site that's, whether deliberately or accidentally, it's sort of followed this pattern. So you've got the top nav, there, study, research, business, etc. You've got the logo as well, so people come to that site and they think, yeah, I know exactly where I am. They've got some really important text those 3 things about minds, teaching and research, and then some of their key buttons that they know people are going to want to click on. But then equally, just go a bit to the right and you've got the find a course, where they know, okay, that's one of the key things that people are trying to do when they come to the site. So this kind of F pattern is quite intuitive, really. And even though you get different types of web design nowadays, the parallax scrolling seems to have kind of reduced a bit, but that was the rage about a year or so ago, wasn't it? But this kind of pattern will always be quite intuitive for users.
Yeah, love it.
And then the next thing about how people read on the web is that we're scanning. So this, for example, this is another eye tracking study. And if you think about yourself and your own behaviour, it's not quite how we might read a book. So you don't pick it up and kind of line by line, word by word, read it very methodically. You very much scan. You're looking for keywords to leap out at you and anything that's going to attract your interest. So it kind of made me chuckle when I looked at this example of Bill Gates. Everyone's going down to see about his wife. See how, you've got net worth, you've got spouse, you've got children. That's what, people are interested in, some of the personal details. And then some of the stuff right at the very top, people, their eyes just aren't drawn there in the same way. And we very much do leap about a page. It's not like how we might settle down with a newspaper and think, I'm going to spend a bit of time reading this. We're quite impatient as web users. Yeah. We need answers very quickly. Joel, when you're doing sites, are you looking at things like, how the duration that people stay on a page, that kind of thing?
Yeah, it all depends what sort of the ongoing support is with looking at things, but so much does go into that initial planning of that content, because this is one of the reasons why I'm really looking forward to getting you on, that left to their own devices, some clients can sort of come up with the most boring, turgid content, which might be sort of surfaced from an old brochure, and it's sort of, we're going to have to make this a little bit more exciting or digestible, really, for the web. So yeah.
Yeah, and some of the tips I've got on layout really help with this behaviour of all of us, that we just scan, we just leap about, we're darting all over the place, up and down the page, and it's not in this kind of line by line approach. And when you first get into Google Analytics or something, you look at this page that you spent ages, this blog post that you've spent ages writing, and you realise, oh, hang on, people don't spend more than 8 seconds on it. Yeah. Sorry, what were you going to say?
I was going to say, so looking at this Bill Gates one here, is this where somebody is scanning initially before they invest a bit further into actually reading it, or is this just how people read, really, or analyse?
Yeah, definitely. I've got a lovely, if I had longer in this webinar, I've got this brilliant example that I'll share with you, showing someone navigating the BBC News website, and they leap about until they eventually settle on something that interests them, which is this story about an octopus stealing a coconut and running away with it.
I would read that. I'm already intrigued. I want to read that story.
Yeah, it's good, and it's so interesting because it shows our eyes. We're going all over the place. We're going up and down, left and right. We're just looking, because we're quite, I wouldn't say selfish, but it's in our interests. Yeah. We're just going to look for things that interest us. So our eyes dart about all over the place. So exactly. When whoever was writing this will have made sure to, they're writing it in this Wikipedia style, where you've got the date of birth, you've got the clear description of who they are. That's the way we will write, but it's not necessarily the way that people will read. Yeah. So I'm not saying you should write it, you should rejig this to suit, because it's Wikipedia, it needs to be done in a consistent style, but it might surprise you the content of people's eyes are a little bit more drawn to.
Yeah, very interesting.
So this is a graph. This is not going to be one of these PowerPoint webinar things full of graphs.
Oh, shame.
And weird pyramids and all of that kind of thing. However, this is very interesting. So, and this answers the question that I had at the beginning about the percentage of words that we read on a page. So when you're around, see where it gets to sort of 400, 600, 800 along the bottom axis, we're only reading about 30 to 40% of the words on a page. So this is this scanning approach. We're just darting about from left to right, up and down. And the thing that tickles me about this, and in fact you kind of inadvertently said it actually, Joel, if you see words on a page where it's kind of nearly zero, people still aren't reading 100%.
Wow.
So even if it's one word, they may not even be reading 100% of them, of the word there. So yeah, it just kind of underlines again that feeling that people are sort of darting about.
Right.
And then where we spend our time as well, this is interesting. So where you've got those higher bars on this chart, that's above the fold. So for anyone that's not familiar with that phrase, then it's the page that you see before you touch anything, before you scroll down, that's the top of the page. But then we might scroll all the way through the content, and then we spend quite a lot of time at the very bottom. So quite often when we look at, say, a long blog post, we are interested in the title, the introduction. Okay, that's all good. Scroll down, skip to the end. What's the conclusion? And then we work out if we're going to go back and read the bits in the middle. And the bit at the very end is often overlooked. But actually, that's a really good place to add things like download a PDF or book a call or, visit our other section of the site. So, don't leave that unloved, because people actually spend quite a lot of time there.
Well, that's interesting, yeah.
I know, it's surprising, isn't it? And even something as useful as a back to top button can be quite handy, because people are actually spending time there. And then the other thing, just thinking about user behaviour, is that people are using multiple devices. So this is Bob, who we had on our homepage before Christmas. And so we were aware that people, they're looking on desktop, they're looking on mobile. So even something as simple as this, we're always checking on mobile once we're putting the content live. And it's the same with text. You want to see how it looks on different devices, because people will be using different devices all the time. So if you've got a long a button that you want people to click on, it's got loads and loads and loads of text on it, then it might look a bit rubbish on mobile. So I would always suggest just don't take at face value what you're looking at. You always need to think people are on their phones, on their iPad, they've got different internet connections, all sorts of things are going to affect how it looks.
Yeah, I agree.
So a quick summary of that then. So people tend to read in an F pattern, so like we learn how to read, and we're scanning the content all the time, so we're looking for answers very quickly, we're very impatient. Give me what I need to know right now. We don't read all the content on the page, so like I say, it's the internet, it's not a book. And then we spend different amounts of time in different areas of the page. So the top left is going to be of a lot of interest, but also, unexpectedly, maybe at the bottom of the page, that's where people are going to spend a lot of time as well. And then, of course, we're using multiple devices, so don't forget to check how it looks on different devices as well. So, Joel, any questions on that section?
Yeah, I wondered, do you think we're getting more impatient, Sue?
Yeah.
Short answer, yes.
because Google is getting so much better at giving us answers that we kind of expect it. So if you think about how localized everything is, when you do a search on Google, it just gives you, so say if you search for Sainsbury's, then it won't just bring up Sainsbury's, it will tell you what time your local Sainsbury's is open.
Yeah.
So it's becoming so intuitive that our expectations are even higher. So then when it does, so say for example, over the lockdown period, I had more time to do gardening. So I was trying to buy some more soil and some more plants, and I was finding all of these local garden centres. It was really difficult to find out if they were open, if they were open online, or what was going on, and I found myself just feeling quite frustrated and impatient with them, whilst at the same time thinking, these are people that don't really work in website content all day long. They're busy running a garden centre.
Of course, yeah.
But it really struck home to me that, I just needed them to tell me what I need to know. And I was quite grumpy, whereas 10 years ago, I wouldn't have expected so much, perhaps.
In terms of that F-shaped pattern we saw, and we can see where it's very cool on the content, where it isn't getting that much eyeballs, does that mean it's not worth writing that content, or?
No, but I think try and have a hierarchy. Right. So think about what is the most important stuff, what are the questions that your users have got, and how can you put the answers to them top left, if that works.
Yeah.
And then other things which are relevant and useful, but that can go in the bottom right kind of area. Okay. So because you still want it there on the page because it's useful, but it might not be where people's eyes go first. No. Which is useful.
I thought it was very interesting as well that people will drop down to the bottom. So when I'm writing my blog post, I'm going to bear that in mind more so.
Yeah, and also when you're writing a blog post, give it a really good conclusion. a really good summary that asks a question and says, okay, well, if you want to know more about that, go to our contact us page, or developer course page or whatever. So that's always worth bearing in mind too. Right. So okay, let's think about what users like as well. So it's the kind of things that people will thank you for if you do it right. So knowing that they're in the right place. And this is all about not just filtering the right people in, so the right target audience, but it's also filtering people out in the nicest possible way. So making sure that the people who are coming to your site, they know they're in the right place, and then they stay there. And then you're not wasting anyone's time that doesn't, it's not of interest to them. So right, Joel, tell me, this is one of my favourite examples because it's so bad.
Oh, hang on, I'm on the spot, am I? Go on then, okay.
Yeah, I'm actually taking the logo off because otherwise it's me. But can you tell me what you think this company might do?
Well, it's obviously a satellite launching, rocket launching company, or they sell trampolines, which can go intercontinental, I think. Definitely that. Intercontinental trampolines, that's it.
That sounds amazing. Yeah, no, they seem to sell bespoke solutions.
Oh, I like bespoke solutions, actually. They're great.
I love them. They're great. And I really like when people are passionate about them as well. That's the best.
Passion is very important, Sue.
Yeah, definitely, particularly when you're meeting complex challenges. So what they're not doing here, they're not defining the audience. So I'm looking at this thinking, well, am I a parent looking for an incredible trampoline solution, or am I an IT company needing support, or so there's nothing here that tells me that there's something here for me, that I am the right sort of audience. And then what they're also not doing is saying exactly what they do. So there's all these abstract phrases, which are nice enough, but solutions, capabilities, challenges, they need to have those keywords around them. So even if it was something to do with food, so you knew, okay, this is to do with restaurants and food and anything there, education, just any of those keywords, so that it says to you, okay, I'm a specialist in this area, or I'm a customer in this area, I'm in the right place.
I was going to say, Sue, what's fascinating about that slide you were just on is that not only is that a nightmare for users understanding what this site's all about, but of course, Google and SEO are equally challenged there. They haven't. If humans haven't got a clue, well, Google won't have a clue, will it?
Well, Google is just trying to replicate the human experience. Yeah. It's trying to be as intuitive as possible. So, I mean, none of these words really mean anything unless they've got a keyword with them. Yeah. And that's, for SEO reasons, but also us poor humans just trying to make sense of it. So, I just love this. Anyway, but I love this more. So this is much better. So you look at this, okay, win more business, and although it doesn't specify what type of business you are, this is talking to people that are trying to make sales. So this isn't talking to parents thinking about what school to send their child to. It's not talking to someone deciding what veg to buy. It's talking to someone that is trying to make more sales and get paid faster. Lovely. And then really nice, then it tells you exactly what it can do. So you can create beautiful, high converting, easy to design proposals in minutes instead of hours. So you've got that benefit there as well. So lots of very simple text, which makes you feel like, yep, you're in the right place. Or maybe you are a parent looking at what school to send your child to, and you think, how did I end up here? So at least you know then, I am in the wrong place, so you don't spend any more time there.
Yeah.
So, like I say, it's about filtering people in, but also filtering people out as well. So helping people orient themselves. An informative title at the top of the page sounds really obvious, but preferably something that matches the URL as well. Using keywords and speak just really plainly about what you do. And a handy thing to do there is to explain it to someone out loud. So instead of spending hours trying to craft that perfect sentence, just think, well, how would you explain it to, if a friend of yours said, actually, what is it that you do? And you explained it to them, how would you put it in those sort of terms? That's quite a good way of getting rid of loads of jargon and waffle. Specify the audience, so if you can mention any sort of audience, anything they'll recognise, they'll latch onto, like whether it's a sector, food, education, tech, sport, leisure, whatever, or even in a more kind of granular way, this is for job seekers, then that's great, because then instantly people just intuitively know they're in the right place. And then acronyms as well. So sometimes, and this is partly because we do a lot of work with the University of Cambridge, so they love their terminology and they love their acronyms. And sometimes people forget that just because you've explained it on one page, then it means you don't have to explain it anywhere else. So I tend to suggest that people explain it at the top of the page, and then if you want to use the acronym, use it after that. But at least it's there on every single page.
Good.
And then, thinking about images as well, just throw in a few images to just kind of reinforce the message. So just to show you what I mean there, so this is the same website that had the nice homepage. So you've got integrations, so the URL, proproposals.io/integrations, and then that matches the name of the page as well.
Yeah.
And then the text kind of, it says that in so many words as well, so connecting your favourite tools. So if for some reason you don't know what the word integrations means, then it's explained there as well. So again, it's all part of making people feel like, okay, great, I'm in the right place here.
Yeah.
And now this is the main thing, that if you take anything away from this session, it's about front loading. And so what that means is that you put in the most important thing first. So the way that we read on the web, I was saying how it's different. It's not like a novel where we just sit down, we curl up on a chair, nice cup of tea, and then we read quite diligently right to the end. And if there's if it's some sort of murder mystery, we want to be led through it. We want to find out at the end who did it. We don't want that ruined, spoiler. Whereas with the web, it's completely the other way around. So we need to see the best bits first, because it's from that point on that we decide, shall we read on, should we click this link?
Yeah.
Is this for me? So it can be a bit of a mind shift, because you've got to flip it around completely. And you need to be thinking, I'll put the conclusion at the beginning, make sure the summary is really good. I've got some examples for you anyway.
Cool.
What were you saying?
I said cool.
Cool. Yeah. Cool. So, okay, right, Joel, another question for you. This is the HMRC page for that, which is, so I did a lot of work with Government Digital Services when we moved everything across from all of these awful websites for, all these individual government departments and the Charity Commission and HMRC and all of this, the sort of websites where you go, oh no, when you go on them. So this is what the VAT page used to look like. So what do you think people are looking for when they come to the VAT page?
I would have thought it's going to be contact details or the VAT rate, that kind of thing, basic information like that.
Yeah, very good guess. So what they did, Government Digital Services, this is the whole thing, what part of their ethos really, about making sure they're giving people answers really quickly to things. So they rejigged the VAT page, and it just looks like that. So they got rid of all of that waffle, all of that stuff saying, our VAT was first invented in whatever year, and it's, the reason behind it is this. And they thought, well, actually, what people want to know is, what's the rate of VAT again? And so they've got that answer, and then they just put it right at the top of the page. So there's, just trimming away all of that stuff. And one of the best things you can do when writing for the web is just take a red pen to most of it, to be honest.
Yeah.
All that stuff about, in an ever-evolving world, in your industry, you're at the ever-changing face of whatever. Just get rid of it and think about what questions people have got and how you can answer them. So here, let me give you some examples. So this is from Techcrunch. So if you see all of these titles here, they're all for blog posts or news articles. You can see how they've front-loaded all of them. So as your eye goes down, and again we're reading from left to right, coronavirus conspiracies, Apple, Google, Tesla, Pangea, decrypted Zoom.
Yeah.
So all of those things leap out. Whereas if you move that round, so let's take the Pangea one. If you started that with student workers and businesses are connected through new seed fund round for Pangea, then that important bit that it's about Pangea is all of a sudden right at the end, so it gets a bit missed.
That's
and if
fascinating.
you've got that coming in your email, then that might get cut off. So
no, I think that's fascinating, because what you show there is that each of those little headlines has almost got its own little F-shaped pattern where we're scanning them.
Yeah.
That's fascinating.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the interesting thing is that people quite often will share an article on the web, on social media, without even reading it. So Techcrunch will probably just sort of we'll have a tool that will just spew these out automatically without anyone having to manually write the tweet. And they're strong enough on their own so that they can go out as a tweet, someone can read this, and they can make a decision there and then whether to click on it or not, because it's giving them everything they need to know about the article. Yeah. So again, it's about sort of flipping the mindset and thinking these titles need to stand alone. You know, you need to be able to understand what it's about without someone actually reading the article.
Yeah.
And it extends to links as well. Now, links is another one where people quite often put the important bit right at the end of the sentence. So if you do it like this, so book your ticket and get our early bird rate, then it's there on the left-hand side. That's where the link is, nice and easy. Whereas what it's quite tempting to do a lot of the time, and I even have to force myself to stop doing this, to get our early bird rate, please book your ticket. And you really want that on the far left, where it's really easy when people are scrolling down. To find out about the results, please download the report. Again, we've got that dangling at the end. And I'd always write that so that link is right at the beginning. And it's all these little extra touches that, when you put them all together, make your website much easier to read.
I would definitely make that mistake, Sue. Reading those there, yeah, that's very interesting, yeah. And
it's partly because this is how we say it in our heads.
Yeah, okay.
You know, so you'd say, oh yeah, if you want our early bird rate, just book your ticket.
Yeah, of course.
But if you just move it around and put it on the far left, it just makes it more likely people are going to click on the thing, which is, of course, what we want. So yeah, keywords, let's try and put them at the start of your title. A conclusion at the top of the page. And I'm a big fan of working backwards. So say if you start with just a working title for your blog and then write it. And then from that, think, okay, what are these really kind of juicy nuggets that are in here? And how can I pull these out and put them in a summary at the beginning? Or is there something that I could pull out and turn that into the title? And so you kind of work backwards, really, because you don't know until you've written a thing what the best bits are. Links and calls to action at the start of a sentence is always really good. And just having that mindset where you're thinking, well, what questions have my readers actually got? So, yeah, is it someone under lockdown looking to see if your business is open? So how can you tell them right at the top of the page, yeah, we're open for business, or please, wash your hands before coming in, any of those little details that we might have going on at the moment. And then think, how can you solve them as quickly as possible? And people worry terribly about the duration that people are staying on a page and stuff. But ideally, if you can give people a good experience, then they'll click around and visit more pages. Being given a specific, so this ties in with what we were just talking about as well. So avoid being abstract. So if you can pull out lots of specifics, lots of keywords, and I've got some examples for you as well, and get them in right at the start, that's really good. And then, of course, that's good for SEO as well, because this is what people are searching for. I don't think anyone is searching for bespoke solutions. I really don't. And if they are,
we've got the website for them.
Have a glass of wine with at a party, put it that way. So these are the sort of titles that people write all the time. So becoming crystal clear, interest payments, crazy talk. And do you see titles like this as well, Joel, that they don't really make sense unless you actually read the article that they're with?
Yes. That's. I mean, are they doing that to try to tease it in? But I mean, certainly based upon your saying, they've got to stand on their own a bit more, haven't they? I suppose.
Yeah, definitely. I think every title should stand alone, so you could see it without its content, and you could work out what it's about.
Right.
Because something like interest payments, I mean, that could have been anything from like a Hollywood scandal kind of gossipy piece to something that's actually about finance. It could be anything. And so whoever's written that thinks, well, that's a clever title. But what it really needs is maybe a colon and then something afterwards to just explain in a bit more detail what it's about. Whereas these ones, 17 creative gin and tonic cocktails. Let's get to that point on a Friday afternoon where we're all starting to think about that kind of thing.
Yep.
Another one of these Techcrunch ones. And then, YouTube, which is, and people don't think of it in this way, but it's such an enormous search engine in itself. If people want to learn how to do something, they just look it up in YouTube. So what you need to do is put the specific keywords in there, because that's what people are looking for. So, how to put a YouTube video into a Word document. That's exactly what you'd write into Google. So they've made sure that title matches it. And then another, just an example of this as well. I mean, I like to call it show not tell. So you're not saying come to this exhibition for a plethora of exciting exhibits. They're saying an ancient Babylonian tablet, a prototype fusion reactor, and even Jimmy Carter's solar panels from the White House. So it's telling you, oh, there's some interesting varied things here, instead of saying, oh, come and see the best exhibition you could ever meet.
Yeah.
So any of those little things that you can pull out that make it interesting without having to tell people it's interesting, I think are really good. And similar thing here, Kew Gardens, they've got a list of simple numbers here on this Facebook post, which is really nice. And then just lastly in this section as well, so another thing that people really like on the web is being told where to go.
True.
Not in a rude way, but a strong call to action. So the way that we behave on the web, we are quite impatient. We don't want to dither. We want a thing. We want to do a thing, or we want to learn a thing. We want to be directed there as clearly as possible. So things like book now, sign up, find a course, book a demo, all of these sort of phrases, and also at the bottom, download a PDF, contact us, all those kind of things. We're steering people in a very clear direction. So if there's anything that you want people to do, then try and say it in a really direct way. And also, I was talking about seeing how it looks on mobile. So these were really short. Yeah. So if you've got a button on mobile, it's going to be smaller. So, that call to action needs to be quite short, really. You want to avoid ing words. Signing up for our course is a really good idea. You want to avoid that. Or finding a course is really easy. You want to say find a course, book a demo, all those kind of things.
Okay, keep it simple.
Yeah. So like this page here, this is from the British Marine website. And so they've just got loads of these clear calls to action. So access a wealth of benefits, search our resources, apply now, register now, watch the video now, join us, contact us. So if you actually... if you spoke to people like this in real life, it might come across as a bit over direct, a bit kind of, like you're bossing people around. But in web content, then you really do need to be quite clear and direct like this, because then people know whether to click or not. Of course, make life easy for people. And then, quick summary of that, sorry. So what people like on the web, they want to get it at a glance. They want to know they're in the right place. They're on a site that's going to help them do the thing that they want to do. And they want to get quick answers. So people are looking at your website, you're putting it together, you've got your lovely office, or maybe not at the moment, your lovely home environment, you've got your fast broadband, you've got your lovely monitor. So you're taking time in crafting this lovely content, but the people who are reading it might be on a bus, holding a baby with a cracked screen, in a hurry, they're trying to get to an appointment. So the people that you're writing for, they're actually scrolling really quickly. They don't care. They just want to get to the information that they need. Try and give people quick answers, because they'll come back to your site again and again. And people like being given the specifics. So think about keywords, think about showing, not telling so much. Think about avoiding bespoke solutions and saying what you actually do. And a clear call to action as well. So telling people exactly where to go, steering them in the right direction.
Yeah.
Okay, so any thoughts on that, Joel?
Certainly. I mean, where you mentioned summary, I know that, I try to blog twice a week and they get to about 1,000 words or whatever. And I think towards the end, I'm just so glad I finished it and proofread it that I think I'm glad to get it out the doors. But certainly based upon what you're saying there, I need to go back and think about that summary at the top, just to front load it a bit more, just to help people understand what it is they're getting from it and whether to invest their time. So certainly the summary was a very important takeaway for me there. Yeah,
and also, say in this blog post you're writing, there's a really interesting story where this dog grows wings and flies away over the fence. Don't just leave that there. You want to get that in the summary and say what happened when this happened, and then get the rest in. That's a terrible example. I wonder if
I liked
can go back and
I liked it.
Edit that out. I'm already thinking, why did I just say that? And where's that come from?
Makes sense to me.
Okay.
So you also mentioned call to actions. I like the call to actions on that proposal design you showed. There was only one call to action. It was in red and it was in two places. It was the same text. So many websites I come across, they're shouting about too much, and it's sort of, I don't know what I'm doing here.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's really good with newsletters as well. It's tempting with a newsletter to try and cram so much in, and then you look at it and think, oh, no one's clicking on anything. Right. You're so right. If you give people too many options about what to do, they don't do any of it. So, and particularly landing pages, if you're trying to do something, really convert people and get them to sign up or to buy something for you, just give them one option.
Keep it simple, isn't it? You touched upon this, and I just want to drop back into it. You talked about duration, and it's funny, a lot of the themes coming out here, a lot of the drive over the last couple of years is to get people to spend more time on a page, more time on a site, but it almost feels like we're trying to sort of go the other way here, that it's almost like sort of, if we can whittle down the content and minimize the time people spend on a page, that could actually be a good thing. But maybe that's an argument about focusing on the wrong metrics. I don't know.
Well, I think it's interesting with metrics, because it is easy just to look at one and ignore the others, because what it means is that you could actually generate more links to your site because people see you as a site that's full of useful information. Yeah. So maybe people move off the page fairly quickly, but then that could be balanced out by the fact that lots of people are coming because it's an informative site. Yeah, or it could be that if you give people the answer right at the top, then they still browse and get travel round. So I think it's easy with SEO to kind of get fixated on one small thing, when actually all the time it could be that you're uploading images that are a massive file size, and it's causing a slow load rate. Yeah, and so you're focusing on one thing, but actually it's that's the problem.
Ooh, I see a question popped in.
Oh, great. Well, let's look at a few tips on layout. Or do you want to ask that one now?
Well, go on. This one dropped in from Thomas. Sue, you spoke about the vagueness of the homepage, but about 1% of my traffic comes in via the homepage. How do we meet those challenges on each page? I wonder if Thomas runs a very content-heavy site then, which is why the why the homepage isn't so important there.
I think that's it's a good thing to flag up, actually, because people sometimes, when we're building a site, we expect people to act in this very kind of dutiful way where they come to the homepage, then they go through the navigation and all of that. Whereas most of the time people arrive from a Google search, so they haven't looked around the rest of the site and they just land there. Yeah. And that's why it's so important to do those things to orient people. So that if it's an event page, for an event that you're running, then it says very clearly at the top what that is. It might even explain again who you are, because you can't make assumptions. You've got to almost expect, write for an audience who've got no idea who you are.
I always try to design it so that if you have a sidebar and say your internal content, that sidebar ends up being like a mini homepage where you're reintroducing it, because they can get into the site any place. So the sidebar helps set the tone. Obviously, sidebars are tricky come mobile because they tend to drop beneath the content. So there are ways you can make it flow into the middle of it. But that's a great question.
I think as well, the homepage text is going to be written in a way that's more broad brush strokes that everybody could understand. And then as you get a few layers in, then you probably would use more niche language. Yeah. Particularly if we're talking about more scientific or, more sort of serious subjects, because you can't talk in a homepage sort of tone of voice everywhere. At some point you are going to drill down. So say if you're a legal website and you've got an area about family law, you're going to be using words that relate to family law and expect the audience to know it because they've come that far. Yeah, exactly. So you will write differently in different parts of the site, perhaps. Cool. So let me give you a few tips on layout as well, because this is really important.
I will switch back. So,
so a good layout means that people are going to be able to read your content, which sounds really obvious. But I know sometimes maybe you're in a situation where you're uploading other people's content and it's quite easy just to kind of take that and paste it in, and you're not really thinking about it because you haven't written it yourself. But often this means it's harder to read. So you want people to be able to read it. You need them to be able to retain the information and share it, hopefully, as well. So if it goes in, people are more likely to share the page, and then they're more likely to come back. And there's some really easy tips on layout, which would be really great to do again and again and put into practice this afternoon. Cool. So clear summary at the top, and I quite like doing that in bold, maybe 1 or 2 lines. Lots of subheadings, bullet points and line breaks. So if you see the way that I've laid all these slides out, there's loads and loads of white space. And the thing is, when we first learn to read, we learn to read just by shapes alone. So if you look at the word and, then you're not saying that in your head. You're not saying A-N-D. You're seeing the round, the curvy A and the curvy N, and then the upstroke and the D.
Okay.
So it saves your brain time. You know, you just see that word, you recognise it. And so the more white space we put around the text, the easier it is to read, which is another reason why you should avoid lots and lots of block capitals. You know, try and write in lowercase where possible. We do use a few block capitals on our H1 headings, so like I've got at the top here, and also on our website, just on the page titles. But everywhere else, we'll use mix of upper and lowercase. So yeah, bullet points, great. Just one lead-in line, some bullet points, saves just so much text. Lots of subheadings to break it up. I like to think if you take away the text around the subheadings can still tell a story on their own, if you like. Lots of line breaks, have one sentence perhaps, then a line break, then another one. Lots of images, they break it up as well. And then try and have a hierarchy. So I've hopefully got some examples of this as well. So,
cool.
So it's not a jumble, you know, so people kind of intuitively know where they are. So this is a fun example about pneumonia.
Oh, this is great. This is so readable. I'm loving this.
Yeah, so what is it that strikes you about this? How would you respond if you came to a page like this?
I would click away. This is going to be a big investment in my time to read this. I would just start at the top and have to plough through, I suppose, isn't it?
Yeah, and so that compared to this for the NHS, how about that? How do you sort of feel, ignoring the factors about illness?
Well, this is wonderful because, I mean, it's got headings, so I can quickly jump around there and I can see that. But, of course, it's got the links as well. So that's another way of me to sort of jump around the page and I suppose to orientate myself and to find out where I actually want to spend my time.
Yeah, so you've got that clear introduction, and that's in bold.
Yep.
You've got the links on the actual words themselves, rather than click here, which whole other subject, but it's great for much better for accessibility and people who are using screen readers. And you've got that clear lead-in line. So the main symptoms of a chest infection can include whereas what they could say is some people find that they have a persistent cough, whereas in some cases other people find that they're wheezing and possibly they have and so it could be written as this very dense paragraph. But just by using that lead-in line, bullet points, they're stripping out probably about 3/4 of the extra text that could be included. And I think in this kind of page, even more so than anything else, you're not just writing for an impatient audience, they're quite poorly as well. So, these people are feeling really ill. They need to be able to just see these answers really quickly and not misinterpret anything. Yeah. So you've got just so much space around the words. They've really stripped it back to, the basics, really, which makes it so much more user-friendly. Improving your layout. Remember, people are scanning. So always add lots and lots of white space, line breaks, lots of subheadings, bullet points. I love bullet points. Reduce the text width as well. So if you think back there, it's that kind of I'm at Wimbledon kind of feeling. Whereas if you make it a bit narrower, then that's just a bit easier to read. So any thoughts on layout?
What are your general thoughts in terms of optimum line length? I mean, you mentioned that there was that one which was just like 3 huge paragraphs and sort of the line used to go on forever. Are there any rules about, at what stage that should be? I mean, obviously more formatting would have broken up that particular example, but are there any general rules about that?
I think it would be interesting to look that up and find out what the latest research is, because, I mean, really, maybe 70% maximum.
Right.
So it's, so it's around 2/3 of the screen. But then if it is more narrow, then that's also, it does actually make it easier to read. Yeah. Let's look into that and find out.
Yeah, it's fine. I mean, I know you do struggle after a certain point, because I think how the eye reads is that as it gets towards the end, it's automatically looking for the next line. A part of you is jumping ahead. Well, the ability to jump ahead is really hard work when the line is long, so the cognitive load is bigger, which disrupts from your actual reading. So as far as I know, but hey, I could be wrong.
I think, and I'll tell you what, I'm going to check this as well, I think it uses more eye muscles to go from left to right than it does to go up and down.
There we go.
But I'm going to double check that in case I've got it the wrong way around.
We will double check that and we will drop that into the show notes.
Yeah, let's do that.
I thought it was great what you mentioned about white space as well. I mean, in general, in terms of design, I think so much is sort of, we got to design what can we take away from the design and it still work? Because there is such a, there's a thought about, look, there's white space there, let's put something in there, feeling that we've got a design is continually adding things, but that's not the case. A lot of it's about reducing it,
I take the Chanel approach to things, where she had this thing about always removing one accessory before leaving the house. And I quite like that in terms of, web design and what content we're putting on there.
Okay.
So you look at it and think, well, actually, do we need that extra picture? Or did we need that extra paragraph? Or could we take that paragraph and turn it into bullet points and take out, 50% of the text? I think particularly if you're working with quite heavy text and it's a very serious subject with lots of jargon. So, like I was saying at the beginning, legal, finance, health, science, all of these kind of things. Sometimes you don't want to touch the text too much because you're nervous of changing the meaning.
Yeah.
So put some more line breaks in, get a sentence that's really long and turn it into two, or put some subheadings in. And all of these things will help your eyes dart about to the right things. And then you, as a content creator, you're not worrying about changing this text that someone else has given you, that said, "Oh, don't touch this." And that is quite often a situation that people are in where they're uploading content that someone else has written, and they're too scared to touch it. So just in the last section then, so the importance of plain English. So this is all about making your content readable and accessible. And the beauty of plain English, so it's not about dumbing things down. It's creating text that is faster to write and is also faster to read. And it helps get your message across in a much more effective manner. So something like this, okay, close more sales, get paid faster. Boom.
I like it.
Really simple. Forget about never-ending sales processes. Now, you can create beautiful, high-impact proposals in minutes instead of hours. So really simple, short sentences. It's written in a slightly conversational way, that now you can create. It's really nice. And the text at the top is very simple. Look how short those words are. And again, when we're thinking about the cognitive load, shorter words are really, really helpful because our brain just recognises them straight away. So, plain English, it helps reduce the cognitive load. So once we get to words that are, say, 8 or 9, 10 letters long, they're slightly less familiar. So our brain has this ever so slight stumble where we go, oh, what's that? I don't recognise that. And sometimes it means that we miss really important connecting words either side, like not, or don't, or isn't, because we're so busy trying to digest this long word that we miss the fact that it's not, we shouldn't be doing it. Sorry, what did you say?
I was going to say that's funny because that would completely change the context, of course, wouldn't it, Sue? Yeah, that's interesting.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And sometimes I've looked at a sentence and there's a difficult word in it. Maybe someone's got a surname that I haven't come across before, or any sort of longer word. And I think, so I'm thinking that's the one I must have misspelled. And then I realised, no, I've spelled about wrong or something else really obvious. But your brain is sort of focusing so much on the complex one that you miss the easy bits. It breaks down barriers. So an obvious one, if you're dealing with a website where there's lots of users that haven't got English as their first language, then you want to write in plain English. Avoid idioms like... I don't know, the kitchen sink, or I don't know, pushing up the daisies. Avoid phrases like that people who don't have English as a first language wouldn't necessarily know. And it helps people understand and retain your information, which is really important. And it makes it readable and accessible too. And if you've got a very academic audience, there's an interesting fact that the higher the level of academic experience, the more people actually prefer plain English. So just because you're writing for a very technical or academic audience doesn't mean that you should write in this very pompous way, because they're not necessarily going to thank you for it, because this is what they're reading all day long. Plain English is great for everybody. It makes your content much more accessible.
Cool.
So it's great to kind of say that in theory, but how you actually do it. So short sentences, short paragraphs. So again, if you've got a really long sentence, government digital services, I think, let me get this right, they suggest it's either 20 or 25 words. Don't go over that. If it's any longer than that, you probably need to break it down into 2 sentences. Use simple and everyday words, not jargon, and trying to be specific rather than general. And using active verbs. So, like the examples I was showing you. So book this, call now, try this, discover our trip. And then using words appropriate to your audience. So it might be a very niche audience who'll recognise lots of terminology, or it might be that if you write in a slightly more kind of pompous kind of way, using long words because you're feeling like, oh, okay, well, there's lots of legal people here, so I'd better do this to impress them, then actually it might alienate people, who don't feel familiar in that world. And a big one there is the work we do at Cambridge University. So they're always trying to open things up and, trying to lose this image of them being elite. And I'm always saying to them, well, a good thing to do is through the language. If you write in plain English, then you're helping present yourselves as people that are a bit more open, instead of writing in this very pompous way. And it's interesting because some of the more serious, sort of heavyweight colleges, they actually write in a very, very plain English kind of way.
Oh, cool.
So just to sort of wrap things up, I've got a little quiz for you. So what can you say instead of at the present time? I'm putting you on the spot here.
Now.
Okay, utilise.
Use.
Yep, articulate.
Say.
Yep, requirement.
Need.
Subsequent.
Next.
Yep, and commence.
Start.
Yeah. So if you think about a sentence that might have all of these long words in, if you just change even one or two, then it makes the whole thing more plain English and more easy to read and understand. And what would you, how do you sort of shrink these down? So what would you say instead of meet with?
Well, just meet, isn't it?
Yep. During the course of?
During.
Yep, on a daily basis.
Daily.
Yeah, merge together.
Well, just merge, isn't it?
Yep, over-exaggerate.
Exaggerate?
Yeah. And then 3 a.m. in the morning.
Well, just 3 a.m. because 3 a.m. is in the morning, isn't it?
And the thing is, when we're speaking, then we might say 3 a.m. in the morning. It might be part of the flow of the sentence, it might be for emphasis and all this kind of stuff. But when you're writing for the web, these are all the little things that you can just take out just trim it back.
I think I'm terrible for this, Sue. I think I'm terrible for that because I only notice so much, I think, perhaps when I'm looking at LinkedIn or those character counter ones where I go, oh, I'm reaching the character count limit. And then I go back and I realise there's so much waffle I can take out,
Yeah. But Twitter, why did Twitter increase their character count to 280? And so people write these incredibly long tweets. Just while I'm on the subject, put some line breaks in, use some emojis instead of bullet points, stick to 140 characters just for fun, and just trim it all back because who's got time to read all that stuff?
Quite, yeah.
So that's kind of all for me. Hopefully we've got a bit of time for questions. Quick thing about us as well, you might want to, these are some of the other things we've got going on at Sue Keogh. So we've got a very good blog where we talk about digital marketing all the time. Mailing list, like everybody. Sue Keogh School, which are my other courses. And then we've started to do a thing after webinars where you can book a little chat, time for a chat with us, or me. So if you go to suekeogh.com/chat, then, if there's anything else that we haven't had time to cover today, you can always talk to me about that.
If you want to let me know any of the links, let me know any of the links for that, Sue, and I'll drop that into the show notes. If you want to add any of the links to that into the comment on this direct onto Facebook, just go ahead and do that then, yeah?
Yeah. So have we got time for a few questions as well? I'm sorry, I've filled up.
No, it's brilliant. Yeah, I suppose, well, we're nearly on the hour now, so I don't want to keep people too long. But it was just funny what you say about the idioms, because we've got so many US clients. I find myself saying things like, take a horse to water, and then quickly going, oh, hang on, have you got the expression for that? And sometimes it's a bit of fun, because sometimes they've got the similar expression, but you've got to catch yourself, because you can use these expressions, which you think are second nature, but of course they're not. They're very localized.
Yeah, letting the cat out of the bag, that kind of thing. Or even fortnight, which we tend to say over here, isn't quite so American.
I do a lot of work with a guy called John Loomer, who's a Facebook ads guy in Colorado, and one of his admin people, Tracy Noble, she lives in Canada. She said, I didn't have a clue what you meant by fortnight when I'm saying fortnightly things. So I've got to get used to saying every 2 weeks or something along those lines.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and you've always got to be thinking about this and sort of just catch yourself. If you're making references that your audience isn't going to understand, then you are going to accidentally alienate them. So, it's always worth keeping that in mind.
Let me have a look at a question which was submitted by Thomas earlier. I can't flash this onto the screen, so I'll just read this to you. It was from Thomas Dawson. My question in advance, in her Write Better, Sell More book, or was that an article, Sue, or was it a book?
It was a downloadable guide.
Right, cool. Right. Sue says, no one cares about your brand. How does this square with Google's current interest in EAT? And I think that's all about expertise, authority, and trustworthiness, and all that kind of beyond SEO thing.
I think it's about when what you need to do is talk less about us and more about you. So when you go to a brand page and all they're talking about is them, and they're not talking about what problem they're solving for their audience, that's the kind of thing we mean. Right. You know, so when people are talking about how many awards they've won, that they're the leading supplier of whatever, when they're kind of talking in that very sort of boastful way, then that, I think that's what we're getting at there. And in fact, there's a friend of mine who has now become like a trainer. He worked in recruitment, and then he now kind of does leadership coaching for recruitment people. And I said, right, what do you think of my website, Sue? And I said, yeah, it's really great. But you don't say you at all. You know, the word why are you? It's all I. So my background is this. I then ran this recruitment agency, and then I learned about this. And there was none of it that said, when you come to me, I solve your problems with public speaking and knowing how to run a business or whatever. So that's kind of what we're thinking about there. You know, don't get so hung up on yourself when you could be thinking about the audience instead.
I think it's so in keeping for a lot of people for that to be their natural writing style, though, isn't it? You know, whereas really you're trying to appeal to the pain points of the audience to make it resonate to them. Oh, wow, this is about me. I will now invest further.
Yeah, no, it's a very natural thing to do, and it's why sometimes, you know, you meet someone at a party and you think, God, all they did was just talk about themselves the whole time. They never asked about me. But sometimes it can be because they're a bit shy and nervous, and they just want to fill the airspace. And that can be the same with a brand sometimes. They're sort of so worried that they're not impressing enough. They're not getting enough across that they forget to think about the audience, and they forget to say they sell lawnmowers, or they are an ad agency, or they're a swimming pool. Yeah. You know, because they're talking about your leisure experience and all the awards that they've won. You know, whereas they're forgetting to say, when you come to our swimming pool, you might enjoy the children's sessions, or you could do lanes. You know, they're missing out all of those things that the audience coming to the site is thinking about, i.e., can I go swimming here? When's the pool open? How much is it going to cost?
Keep it simple, isn't it? The final question I thought I'd ask was on behalf of people out there who are maybe running a single person companies. Should they be writing in the first person or the third person? I mean, how do they feel comfortable writing online in terms of their website content, do you think?
I think it's best to try and be transparent. So if you say we, if it is just you and you're a one-man band, then if you do try and make out that you've got offices all over the world and there's loads of you, then actually when people meet you in person, okay, you've got all your marketing right, but then they actually meet you and they think, oh, this isn't right, in a way that if they knew all along that it was just you, then they wouldn't be bothered. Because, you know, I must say, I try and avoid the sort of stuff where you say, oh, you know, pull up a cosy chair and have a cuppa and settle down to reading my lovely web content. You know, do try and sort of project an image of yourself as the expert, the person that can solve your problems and that can, you know, do what you need to do. So I think it's nice to be conversational and come across as a human being. But you also need to remember, how can I show that I can get results for people that are coming to my site? So you're conversational, but without being too touchy-feely, I suppose.
I think when I first set up in business many years ago, I think I did the whole we thing, and I can remember when I'm writing the actual tension and the discomfort of doing that, because you suddenly feel like, well, I'm not something who I should be this proper company. I think when I broke through to realizing, no, you can write about yourself and in the first person, it flows better, you know. It's better sounding content, but the actual process of writing just flows a lot better, I think.
And sometimes on those websites, not all the time, but sometimes it's missing an about page, and so you get the we thing, lots of that, and then when you actually look around, because you think, oh, who is it that works there? Because you might generally think, oh, I know this company, who is it? Who is that guy again? And then it's hidden and it's buried, and then it makes you lose a bit of trust in them because they're not being transparent about who they are. And then okay, it's just one guy or two guys, and they're trying to project themselves as bigger than they are. And there's nothing wrong with being a two-man band or a one-man band, but you may as well just be honest and upfront about it.
I agree.
You know.
And I think that about draws us to an end. I know we had some nice comments come in from some of the people who were watching. I've just overridden Andrew's comment there. Technology, people, don't use it. There's Andrew's comment as well. Look, Sue, I mean, what can I say? That was fantastic. There were so many interesting takeaways, so much stuff I'm going to have to do in terms of my blog posts. What I'll do is that I will put all the show notes together, and if you've got any links and stuff, I will drop all those in there. I'm also as well going to go off and see if I can buy the domain name International Intercontinental Trampolines. I really think there's a business model out there. I'm passionate about bouncing people to different continents.
Oh God, yeah, get those bespoke trampolines.
I've got expertise in doing it. So, well, look, is there anything final you want to say before we vanish then, Sue?
No, just I'm sorry I had to gallop through the whole thing. There's just lots I wanted to get across.
No, you got it across, and it was really well done, and it was all really understandable, which is perfect because, of course, that was the whole thing. So, there's more comments coming in. So, thanks very much, Sue, and for everybody, thanks very much for tuning in.
Thank you.
Show notes out next week, and next Friday we've got Nick Boyce on talking about e-commerce. Everybody, go and enjoy your weekend. Thank you very much for tuning in to Glass Mountains and Sue. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.